He did a version of Stairway that had a choir and
kept,
an orchestra,
that was
and then after the guitar, well, it was with the...
At 81 years old, Jimmy Page, the mystical mastermind of Led Zeppelin, has finally let slip some of his darkest secrets. For decades, fans saw him as a guitar god, the man who turned blues into heavy metal magic and built one of the greatest rock bands in history. But behind the riffs, the solos, and the legend, Page carried grudges, deep ones. Today, we're revealing the 6 guitarists Jimmy Page reportedly hated the most. Some of these rivalries were whispered about in recording studios, others exploded onto the public stage, and all of them tell us a lot about Page's impossible standards, his perfectionist nature, and the competitive world of rock guitar. Welcome to another episode of Rock Rivalries Uncovered. Turn up your Marshall stacks and buckle in, because the names on this list may shock you, and the stories behind them will blow your mind. Number 6. Ritchie Blackmore. Kicking off the list is none other than Ritchie Blackmore, the flamboyant guitarist of Deep Purple and Rainbow. Both Blackmore and Page were pioneers of hard rock in the early 70s, and you'd think mutual respect would follow. Instead, a bitter rivalry grew. According to rock journalist Jeff Barton, Page once sneered that Blackmore thinks every song needs a bloody sword fight. The man confuses volume with passion. What Page couldn't stand wasn't just Blackmore's guitar style, it was the theatrical Renaissance fair showmanship. Page built mystical atmospheres with light and shadow, while Blackmore dressed his music in costumes and stage antics. Studio insiders even claim that in 1974, when Blackmore arrived at a London session, Page deliberately walked out, muttering to his roadie, "I don't have time for costume parties." For Page, Blackmore represented the triumph of spectacle over substance, something he despised. Number 5. Eddie Van Halen. Landing at number 5 is Eddie Van Halen, the revolutionary virtuoso who changed guitar forever with his tapping technique. When Van Halen's debut album exploded in 1978, the guitar world shifted overnight. Fans called him a genius. Page, however, saw something else. According to Guitar World editor Brad Tolinsky, Page told friends in a London pub, "Anyone can learn parlor tricks. Real guitar playing comes from the heart, not from showing off like a circus performer." That jab, clearly aimed at Eddie's famous tapping, reportedly reached Eddie's ears within weeks. For Page, the problem was what Eddie represented: the future of guitar as athletic display, full of flash but stripped of the blues-based soul Page lived by. When a journalist asked him about it in 1979, Page reportedly quipped, "There's a difference between playing guitar and playing with a guitar." Everyone knew who he meant. The tension boiled over in 1980 when someone brought up Eddie's Eruption solo in a Los Angeles studio. Page snapped, "I've heard enough about bedroom noodling for one lifetime." Eddie, to his credit, always spoke respectfully of Page, calling him a master. But for Page, Eddie was the flashy circus act that signaled the end of the era he cherished. Number 4. Yngwie Malmsteen. At number 4, we find the Swedish shredder himself, Yngwie Malmsteen. Known for his neoclassical metal and oversized ego, Yngwie proudly claimed he was the greatest guitarist alive. Page, unsurprisingly, didn't agree. At a charity event in the mid-1980s, Page reportedly joked, "This Swedish peacock thinks Bach wrote power chords." The man has confused technique with music itself. That cutting remark spread fast across Europe. Page couldn't stand how Malmsteen dismissed the blues entirely, treating guitar as a vehicle for scales and academic exercises. He reportedly told a journalist in 1987, "Some people think more notes equals more music. They're usually the same people who think louder equals better." The rivalry hit a breaking point at a 1988 Guitar Expo, where Page allegedly walked out of Yngwie's performance telling security, "I don't need to watch someone practice scales for 20 minutes. Malmsteen later fired back, dismissing Led Zeppelin as primitive blues noodling. For Page, Yngwie represented everything wrong with modern guitar: technique without soul. Number 3, Keith Richards. Sliding into number 3 is a feud within British rock royalty: Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones. The animosity stretched across decades, fueled by jealousy, insults, and competing visions of what rock and roll should be. Back in the late 60s, when both bands were climbing the charts, Page reportedly told engineers, "Keith thinks 5 chords make him Chuck Berry." The man wouldn't recognize a melody if it bit him on his weathered arse. That quote reached Richards quickly. The feud was rooted in their different approaches to the blues. Richards believed in raw simplicity: 3 chords, pure groove. Page saw himself as a craftsman of elaborate arrangements. To him, Richards's style was 3-chord primitivism, mistaken for authenticity. "Anyone can bash out satisfaction," Page allegedly said in 1973. "Real musicianship requires more." Things got ugly in 1975 at Madison Square Garden. Witnesses claimed Richards ignored Page's handshake, muttering, "I don't shake hands with thieves," a jab at Zeppelin's alleged lifting of blues songs. Richards later dismissed Page's music as overproduced wankery. The Stones and Zeppelin were forever divided by this clash: raw grit versus mystical polish. Number 2, Jimi Hendrix. Now here's the shocker. At number 2, we have Jimi Hendrix, the man many consider the greatest guitarist of all time. Yet behind closed doors, Page reportedly bristled with jealousy and resentment. When Hendrix stormed London in 1967, he immediately overshadowed everyone, including Page. According to historian Charles Shar Murray, Page told friends, "This American comes over here, and suddenly everyone forgets who was playing guitar before he arrived. He's all flash and feedback. Where's the musicianship?" Page viewed Hendrix's style, wild feedback, fiery showmanship, and guitar-burning antics, as controlled chaos. He reportedly said, "Some people think breaking guitars makes you a genius. Real musicians don't need pyrotechnics." Industry insiders claim Page became paranoid that Hendrix was deliberately upstaging him, once telling bandmates, "He's trying to make everyone forget there were guitarists before him." Number 1, Eric Clapton. And finally, at number 1, the feud that defined British blues: Eric Clapton. Things turned personal when Clapton poached drummer Jim Gordon, who had been working with Page. Page felt betrayed, telling confidants, "Eric builds his career on other people's talent because he doesn't have enough of his own." By the 1970s, the rivalry had become open warfare. At a private party, Page allegedly boasted, "The difference between Eric and me is that I create music. He just copies it louder." Clapton, for his part, dismissed Zeppelin's heavier sound and positioned himself as a faithful blues disciple. Page retaliated by calling Clapton a blues museum curator who never wrote an original idea in his life. And there you have it, the 6 guitarists who reportedly earned Jimmy Page's legendary contempt. Which feud shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe for more untold stories from rock's golden era.